Hi, this is Dr. Dara and I'm in the home of my friend Sam here, who's graciously opened up his kitchen for us to make wontons and dumplings for Lunar New Year, which is coming up. To make the filling, I'm going to do two different types. One is vegetarian dumplings and the other is with pork. A nice substitute for pork or meat is using lentils. I've already prepared lentils and it could be the same consistency as meat, and it's just a nice replacement. So if you're trying to become a little bit more plant-based, you can add a little bit more lentils to it, and then as you go on, if you prefer it, then you can use more and more lentils, but it's a really nice replacement for those who don't prefer eating meat. The different types of Chinese vegetables that you might see in the Asian grocery. One is Chinese chives. So this is different from the American chives, which are onion chives. These are a little bit more flat, as you can see, and these are garlic chives with the blossoms on top. This is also edible, so you can have that, and that can be used together, but this is really good for garnishing as well. So even without cooking it itself, you can just add it as a pretty accompaniment. And then we have scallion, which is the sprouted onions. This eventually becomes the onion itself. So sometimes when you have older onions, you'll see green sprouts coming out. That essentially is the green onion, but these are cut earlier, and this is used across all of Asian cuisine. And then I also have bai cai, which is Napa cabbage, and this adds a little bit more roughage to your dumplings as well as a filler, so it's not all meat, and you can add more or less depending on your tastes. The other thing I also will put in the dumplings are shiitake mushrooms. So they were initially dry, but I hydrated it, and you can even use the water later on for a soup stock, and this just adds a different texture and a little bit more umami to your dumplings. We also had the water chestnuts that I had bought earlier at the Japanese grocery store, so we'll add this into the dumplings, which adds a nice crunch and texture. Some eggs that will also serve as a binder along with the cornstarch. Here's some shrimp. These are all special things that you can add. You can make whatever mix you'd like, but we've got shrimp here, cornstarch, sesame oil, and soy sauce. We can put it in both mixes the same way. All right, so we're going to add all the condiments into the different mixes, and I'm going to do both at the same time because it's the same thing other than the lentils being different. And I eyeball it. There's plenty of places where you can find the mixture. It really is what you want to put in. Oil, soy sauce. These are the water chestnuts. Chop some of these up, make them small enough to fit into the dumplings itself without having any difficulty. So the garlic chives have these beautiful blossoms, and it's good for decoration and for presentation. The bottoms are also good. It has a mild taste, not as pungent as a real garlic. Depending on how much you want to add is really dependent on what you prefer. I'm just putting a little bit at a time just to show you. But again, you want little small pieces into the dumplings itself. Put in the egg, which is a binder, before I put in the Napa cabbage, because you can also, depending on how much vegetable meat filling ratio you want, you can adjust this accordingly. Shiitake mushroom, which I already rehydrated, use this later on for soup, so keep the fluid in there. This you can just put into little strips, and whenever I see shiitake mushrooms, I'm like, ooh, they really wanted to step up and upgrade the level and luxurious component of what the filling is. So let's put that in there. If you get a good piece, that's even better. And the rest of this you can also put into soup later on. So you can leave them whole, you can put it into little pieces so later, but I want to show you also the Napa cabbage. I'll take off the stem because they're all attached here, so take that off first. Again, depending on how much you want to use, if you want to do more on the vegetarian side, just add more Napa cabbage. Stack them up. You don't want these long, big leaves. This is the hard part, which is the white part, and then you've got all the leaves which will break down, but this is the part that's hard. So you want to make sure that this part is chopped properly. Stack them up so they're lined up. You want them into small pieces.
That's an interesting technique, I've never done that.
That way, everything is still the same and doesn't fly all over the place, and then you can cut them into small pieces like that. And then as you get to the top, you don't have to cut it as finely because these are going to become smaller. And this is just true in terms of all vegetables. You usually have a hard root and then you've got the leaves which will cook down. But the hard part you want to cut a little bit smaller because or also put it into stir fries a little bit earlier because it takes longer for it to cook. Same thing with scallions. The bottom part is a little bit harder. You need a little bit more time to cook it. And the tops, you can even use it as garnish. So you can cut into smaller pieces for garnish, but the bottom parts you want to cook a little bit earlier than the rest of it. And then this I cut a little bit bigger, put into both sets. And the leaves you can actually even use for soup later on. So we're going to make two different types of dumplings. One are wontons and the other are pan-fried dumplings. So I'll show you both techniques and both folds. You can just choose which one you like better. This is the lentil one. And sometimes if you want to see if it tastes good before actually folding it, you can take a little bit of it, heat it up really quickly, just put it in the microwave for a couple of seconds to see if you like the flavor. So with the meat one, it's also recommended mix into it and move in one direction. Use a big mixing bowl so that things are not flying all over the place. I'm also going to add a luxurious product to the filling, which are shrimp. And if you want to have the shrimp whole so that you have little pieces in each dumpling, but if you're short on shrimp, then you can certainly mince it and cut it into smaller pieces as well. So this is just another filling that is optional, but certainly elevates your mix. Again, I've already incorporated the vegetable filling, and this is my meat filling. And as a binder, not only did I add the egg to it, but cornstarch is another. Make sure if you don't want to cross-contaminate, then just use different chopsticks. So this is my vegetable filling, and then I have another pair of chopsticks. And the other thing that you can do to try to make it a little bit more sticky inside the dumplings is mix the meat in one direction so that all of the proteins in the meat get incorporated, and it makes for a stickier and tackier filling, and it'll make it easier when you cook the dumplings that they're not all falling apart, because you don't want it to be ground meat where it's all falling apart inside the dumpling itself. Okay, and then I'm going to move on to the folding aspect. Something that we're going to help is water, and I put some cornstarch in there so that it's a little bit of a mix. So this is regular cornstarch. I'm just putting a little bit of water so that we can use that as a way to seal the sides of the dumpling wrappers. So I'll bring this over to you, and come on over. I have a whole bunch of friends who are ready to wrap. Water with a little bit of cornstarch. Add a little bit of cornstarch in here so nothing sticks. The vegetarian filling over here. We've got the meat filling here.
I think you need to catch up on the meat filling.
All right, well,
Vegetarian.
oh my God, you guys are, okay, is this a contest now? So we've got two different types. Square wrappers, which are typically used for wontons and for soup. And then we also have the round ones, and you can make different designs. But you guys are pros at this already. I have to catch up. So wet the outside and then add meat to it. Pinch it in the center first, and then you can pleat it just like that. On one side and then the other side like that. And you can make it a little bit curls, and you've got a dumpling like that, and then you can just stand them up. So I'll do another one to show you. Add some water to the outside to help the wrapper stick. Add some filling, and when you add the filling, you want to make it a little bit on the oval side so that it matches the wrapping, and then you pinch it in the middle and you pleat it a couple times, and then there you go. And then you've got like nice little dumplings. But look, all these different shapes. We've got some tortellini looking ones. We have one that looks like money bag, xiaolong bao. And then you've got all these different types. So as long as it's sealed and nothing is popping out as far as the meat goes, and honestly, even if the meat does come out, it's not a big deal. It'll just make the soup taste even better. Show you one more, and then I'll move on to the square ones. And then that's it. And then you got little uniform ones. For dim sum, you have different shapes. You have shrimp hargao, which is using rice paper. You have baozi, which is with barbecue meats, and they have a different fold for each one. And depending on what the shape of the fold is, you can tell what kind of filling it is. Whoever's going to get this one is going to be lucky, because I'm going to put a little piece of shrimp in that one. But with kids, as long as they close it, it's fine. So even if you have a simple one like that, which is just folding it in half, it's fine. But this is just for decoration and also for people to gather around the table and talk and have a good time. So let me show you the square wontons, water, whether you want to go around or just at least do two sides. Some meat in there, corner to corner to make a triangle. Add a little bit more water to the end, and then you just bring it over, put a little dimple in there, and then go like that. See? So you have a little bit of a wonton bonnet. These are typically used in soup. It's a different fold, but they all taste the same. They're all delicious. People can decide which one they prefer, but I just wanted to show you different folds so that you can try which you prefer. Fold it in half from diagonal to diagonal, and then you just fold over the ends, and that's it. You just pinch it. So the key thing is really just pinching it and making sure that the meat doesn't fall out. And there you've got some little dumpling. And these will pan fry. These will do wonton soup, which is faster and healthier. But I'll show you the pan fried technique, and depending on which you prefer, you can just choose one or the other or do both. Both tasty. So if you make extra, then just freeze them and you can have it for another time and you've got dumplings to go. You guys are doing a great job. Look at that. You're all experts here. Oh, and then there's even empanadas, right? One time I did a dumpling party and someone mentioned that these are just like empanadas, and all she did was she folded it in half and then she took a fork and then she started pinching the outside. Really, it's just the filling that's different. So however way you want to do it. Oh, this is another one. So this is, Sam has done some expert folding here. We've got some square dumpling pockets. You can fold it like this, and then you can have like a different kind of dumpling like that. I mean, again, as long as it's sealed, it's whatever you prefer, okay? But yeah, that one's a cute one too. There's also another one where you can do a tri-fold, like a triangle. That one was 4, but you can also do 3. If you want to make shumai too, you can have an open face and then steam it. But that's another one. I mean, it's all going to go down the same way, so however way stimulates and whets your creative spirit, go for it. As long as it's not, wait a minute, who made this? This one's like, I did. Fess up! Fess up!
Yeah, this is not gonna last.
All right, this one, this is going to be very good soup stock. Soup stock, that's what it is. So, okay, Sam is going to demonstrate a tortellini type. You just go like this, right? I know how to do one, look. Yeah, but mine is cuter.
Why is your cuter?
That's also for soup. We're gonna have very rich soup stock here. We're gonna keep on drinking. We're gonna get hanging out, folding, and then I'm gonna show how to make it so that we can eat and fold at the same time. Cooking method while it is boiling the dumplings. So I have 2 pots going, one for the vegetarian and the other for the meat. And I'm just going to flavor it with shiitake mushroom that I had hydrated that, and you can use this fluid and we can just flavor both pots like that. We've got some mushrooms in here. Put that in there. King trumpet mushrooms. This just adds to the soup as well. I also have beech mushrooms, so these are really small and tiny, and this we can just throw in. We've got now shiitake mushrooms, we've got beech mushrooms, and we have the king oyster mushrooms that we can throw into the soup. Some vegetables that we can add, so this is called youcai, Chinese vegetable. Put in the harder parts in first, because that way that'll cook a little bit longer, and then the leaves you can put in later. And then also have the Napa cabbage from before. Throw it in there. So when it goes up to a boil, then I'll just throw in the dumplings. In the meantime, make a couple of dipping sauces. So we'll explore a couple of different dipping sauces, some that come in the bottle and some you can just make on your own. Instead of soy sauce, black vinegar and ginger gives you that bite. Good for people with high blood pressure. We have some spice that also adds flavor. There's certainly jarred bottles. They add a lot of sugar. In this sweet chili, you can essentially make it yourself by using vinegar and using a lot less sugar and using these spice blends. Garlic, ginger, scallion, onion, cilantro, ginger, and you can still have a very satisfying meal without as much sugar and salt as you would in other Chinese dumplings. One simple dipping sauce is just using ginger root and black vinegar. So people are intimidated by ginger root, but it adds a really nice taste. Choose a ginger root that is nice and robust with fewer knobs, because that way you don't have to manipulate a knife around every nook and cranny. I've seen where people have used a spoon and just scrape it off, which you can certainly do. But for me, I just go around the edges like this, and you cut them into little matchsticks. Just add your black vinegar, commonly used in Asian cooking as a dipping sauce. So instead of using soy sauce, which contains a lot of sodium, you can use black vinegar as a replacement. So often I've told my patients that instead of soy sauce, use black vinegar because it has the same color for one. It gives you that bite, and it also lacks the sodium that you'll find, and it won't raise your blood pressure, and it's a good condiment to do some dipping. And then if you wanted to add some scallions to it, cilantro, sesame seeds. If you want to add spice, you can do whatever you want. So this is just a very simple dipping sauce. This is coming up to a boil, so I'm going to put the ones in here. The ones that were the square wrappers, I'm putting in there first because it doesn't have as much of a base for frying, whereas the ones that are flatter, we can do that pan fried. So, and then that way we can start eating. And also, depending on your dumpling, this has a lot more meat, so it's going to take a little bit longer for it to cook. So put that in the soup ones, whereas ones that have a smaller filling, like this one, is going to fry easier. So I boiled everything and I'm starting to plate it up. I already put the mushrooms in there, the vegetables in there, and this is what it looks like. The vegetarians have already have already been cooked, so as long as the outside is cooked, then it's ready to spoon out, and I'm just plating out some of the meat ones. And then if you want to add some cilantro and some sesame seeds, more soup, and we have that black vinegar and other dipping sauces that we can add, and some chives just for presentation, and there you go. Wonton dumplings. To do the other way of cooking dumplings, one was the wonton soup, which is the healthier way, but some people really enjoy the pan fried, and honestly, I prefer the wonton because it's healthier, it's easier. But I'll show you how to make this really quickly and make it a little bit healthier so that you don't feel like you're missing out. So I have a hot pan going. I'm using avocado oil instead of vegetable oil, which is a little bit healthier for you, and it has a high smoke point. And the dumplings that I'm going to be making are the ones that are the lentil ones, which act as a really good substitute for ground meat. So be a little bit more plant-based, be a little bit more vegetarian. Number one, you can always add more Napa cabbage, you can add more vegetables to it, decrease the amount of meat without feeling like you're depriving yourself. The other thing to make a complete substitute is use lentils, because that has a similar consistency to the ground meat, and all the condiments are still the same. So I'm going to put this down, and we're going to use two different cooking methods to fry them. One is frying the bottoms, and I have water with some corn starch. The other thing to make it a little bit crispier is just put a little tiny thumbnail full of flour. It'll evaporate off and we'll cook the tops of it. So we're going to pan fry the bottoms so that you're not really deep frying it or making it all oily and greasy. Frying a little bit just so that you have crispiness to it, and then I'll put the water in and cover it up, and then I'll steam the rest of it. So be careful when you add the water to the oil because it will splatter. The inside made out of lentils, so actually it's even another insurance that you don't have to worry about it being raw inside because it's lentils. If it were meat, obviously you have to make sure that the meat is cooked thoroughly, but if you're using lentils and vegetables, then really we just want the outside dough to be cooked through. Actually, it's an even easier trick. If it were meat, then cook it for maybe 10 minutes. Thinking about making vegetarian dumplings, it's actually a good way to not only be healthy, but also ensure that you don't have to work with anything that is raw. What you'll end up with are pan-fried on the bottom dumplings and steamed/boiled on top. And then you can eat that and have just a little bit of oil rather than having something heavy and greasy, because in terms of dumplings, we have your vegetable in the boiled dumplings, and you can add more vegetables there, but we have this as a secondary cooking option, which is generally takes more time, but it's also not as healthy. So there's two reasons why you should go for the boiled dumplings after all. So when the water boils off, then you're ready to take this off, and with it will come this really nice, crispy, flaky bottom. And you see how the bottom is nice and flaky? I'll show it to you. See? And that's what you want, this crispiness. You don't always see that, so this is what they have, like a skirt. You don't always have that. That's where the flour comes in. You don't see that often, but this is how you would treat that. Beautiful. All right, cheers. Adult dumpling bodies. Cheers.